respectively. The world is interlinked, and the obstacles we encounter are not confined within our borders. They require a unified response rooted in solidarity and cooperation. In Ghana, we are committed to promoting a 24-hour economy aimed at creating an environment where businesses can operate around the clock. This initiative seeks to maximize economic productivity and infrastructure utilization while generating sustainable employment opportunities across multiple shifts. Key sectors such as agro-processing, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, construction, and transport services will greatly benefit from this policy, leading to a thriving economy that works for everyone and not a select few. We recognize the vital role of export development as a key driver of economic growth. We will accelerate export development aimed at boosting export capacity and market accessibility. We will establish the Accelerated Exports Development Program, which I have committed to personally chair. And we're also committed to supporting micro, small, and medium enterprises with technology to efficiently leverage the African Continental Free Trade Area. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to reaffirm our commitment to social development and acknowledge that our diaspora remains an invaluable asset to our nation. We are dedicated to strengthening our connection with Ghanaians abroad and people of African descent worldwide, and friends of Ghana wherever they may be. Migration, if properly managed, can benefit migrant workers, their communities, and their countries of destination and origin. However, migrant workers are often at risk of exploitation, abuse, and exclusion, with limited access to social protection benefits. Ghana is finalizing bilateral labor agreements with key partners to address the needs of vulnerable labor migrant workers and promote ethical recruitment. We're also in the process of finalizing additional agreements to enhance protection and support for migrant workers. We'll also launch the Ghana Labor Export Program, which would allow skilled Ghanaian workers to work abroad for specified periods in order to gain experience and also to contribute their quota to other countries.
Central to our foreign policy is our commitment to being friends to all and enemies to none, as His Excellency President Mahama reiterated this morning. We are determined to uphold the respect for sovereignty and peaceful coexistence. We continue to prioritize strengthening our ties through diplomacy, trade, and cultural exchanges. Economic diplomacy remains a cornerstone of our international strategy, acknowledging that strong economic relationships catalyze sustainable development. We are focused on fostering trade agreements and equitable economic policies. We are also working on labor agreements that provide added decent job opportunities which guarantee the dignity and rights of the Ghanaian youth. In today's digital age, we recognize the importance of digital diplomacy. We are committed to ensuring that technological advancements promote inclusive growth and ethical governance. Our goal is to create a digital space that supports equitable access and innovation while protecting rights. As we face the realities of climate change, it is imperative to enhance our efforts in environmental sustainability and climate adaptation. We are ready to collaborate on initiatives that address this critical issue through sustainable action. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, our global economic uncertainties, cybercrime, terrorism, food insecurity, and pandemics are pressing challenges that need a unified response. These threats to global stability and security make it clear that comprehensive cooperation and stronger security frameworks are indeed necessary. And this is why, Your Excellencies, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, following through with the marching orders received from President Mahama, is currently formulating a new comprehensive foreign policy that reflects the current dynamics and prepares us for a more transformational future. Consistent with our pledge to carry out institutional reforms at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have promptly created a delivery unit which is headed by a distinguished ambassador to spearhead these institutional reforms. At the core of the objectives we seek to achieve are greater efficiency, maximum diplomatic impact. Diplomacy must translate into the well-being of the people. And ambassadors are going to be given KPIs to meet as we pursue a vigorous economic diplomacy agenda. And responsiveness of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We believe that the time has come to end the consistent complaints that the ministry has not been responsive to correspondence from particularly the diplomatic community. Your Excellencies, having been inundated with complaints from our fellow compatriots, we would like to entreat all diplomatic missions in Ghana to ensure that they treat our nationals who visit their premises in pursuit of their visa applications with dignity and respect. We will respectfully like to implore you to provide conducive waiting areas, emergency services, reasonable waiting time for appointments, and address challenges in using visa application websites. It is, however, fair to observe that some diplomatic missions are doing a great job in this regard. And for those
right, so if you just joined us, the show is Diplomatic Affairs, and we are bringing you all the updates from the diplomatic community, not just Ghana's diplomatic community, but the world as well. And I have my panelists with me, and I told you the show is going to be very, very interactive. So if you also have anything to share with us, please follow us on YouTube and Facebook and share your views with us. Now, we just finished watching a video of a short video of the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and the Foreign Affairs Minister. Mahama hosted the diplomatic community right after we saw him in Parliament. I think it was a very busy day for them. For me, Mahama generally spoke about the plans that they have in place, such as the policies and the programs that they intend to introduce to accelerate development when it comes to Ghana. And I think that's a very good one, sharing some of the interesting initiatives with the diplomatic community. The diplomatic community is a development partner when it comes to Ghana's interest in terms of development. We work together. Therefore, it is very essential that he would arrange meets with them and give them at least heads up on some of the things that he intends to roll in terms of policies. What do you make? Some of the things I find to be very vigorous, very aggressive measures that are going to be put in place to run the country, because Foreign Affairs Ministry is key when it comes to every country's development. Let me start with you, Samuel.
Yes. So our diplomatic ties with the Western countries or other countries is very important. However, if you look at some of the policies that we put together by these foreigners and we sign up to, they do not inure to our benefit. And at the end of the day, we are treated like we are servants. And I think those rigorous strategies or processes or procedures put together or put across by the president, which of course they are going to ensure that those rigorous measures are implemented, is very important. I've always been saying that countries thrive on each other's strengths and weaknesses. we actually rely on each other. But if it comes to a point where we have to also look at our interest as a country, it's very, very important. If you look at some of the bilateral agreements we've entered into, and some of the clauses, they do not benefit the country. And as a developing country like Ghana, it is important for us to explore some of these areas that we think that it will help us. China, I've always been quoting China as an example. If you look at China, they entered some of these bilateral agreements of which they looked at their interests as a country. Some of the bilateral agreements include Belt and Road Initiative, which actually connected to some of the Asian countries, and it actually pushed for the development of China. If you look at some of the policies, like they have what we call the CAFTA, the CHAFTA, and other policies, which I think that they are very, very important, and they push towards the development of China. And Ghana, we have AFTA, but we should ask ourselves the kind of progressive and radical change that we want to look at in terms of our trade with other regional countries in the sub-region, that is ECOWAS and other countries. How is it faring? It is something that we ought to look at. And if some of the clauses do not actually contribute to the development of Ghana, I think we should look at, because we have the headquarters of AFTA in Ghana here. However, if you look at the trade barriers, it is serious, and I think that it is important for us to look at some of these things so that we can develop ourselves as a country.
Indeed, it is very crucial when it comes to developing the country. And I think diplomacy contributes largely to countries spearheading their interests. You talked about China. China has actually featured in almost all your examples, because you think that they always go to the table with an agenda. They are very strategic. Do you think we are strategic enough before we even delve deeper into the foreign minister's a few of the initiatives that he has actually put forward when it comes to taking Ghana to the next level? Let me ask you, do you think that we are strategic enough in terms of our dealings with the rest of the world?
The president has set the pace rightly. You understand, from what he put across, it shows that he's really ready for all that. And I believe all the measures he's putting in place are very strategic enough. I mean, by strengthening the international partnerships and fostering global cooperation alliance with what Ghana stands for in terms of foreign policies and principles as well. So yes, I can say it is in the right direction.
He also talked about the role of the diaspora.
Yeah.
How crucial is that to development?
It is very crucial, because when you look at the economic, I mean, there are so many reasons we can say that it is crucial. Look at one, economic contributions, where we can talk about remittances. We have Ghanaians all over the world, and they also have families here where they send remittances to them. And I believe that in terms of economics or trade or investments, we benefit strongly there. When you look at social and cultural, we have social network, we have cultural exchanges, we have all kinds of benefits. And lastly, I can also mention political contribution, where we advocate and then we do our policy as well. So yes, it is good, yes.
It is good. Well, we already know the contributions of the diaspora when it comes to growing any country.
Yeah.
You cannot do it alone. You need the expertise of the diasporans. You need the knowledge, the technical know-how, everything that they can bring to the table for us to. But I don't know whether we have actually made room enough. Maybe it will be too early for me to state regarding this particular administration. But the past administration, I know one of the areas that they excel would be the year of return, trying to get, people to come back home.
Yes.
It's not just Ghanaians, but Africa at large. And I think with that, it was strategically done.
Right.
It really, really contributed to the benefit of the people and the country. So I want to see what this current administration also does. This is one good initiative that I think we should continue to push. The idea of somebody starting something and the other person, coming into power and truncating it is why we keep going, back and forth and not see any growth. So what are your expectations before we move on to Okudzeto's speech?
Okay. With the back and forth, I believe everything starts and ends with leadership. And one of the things that I'm looking out for from Ghanaians is that we will put the politicians on their toes, whereby in their manifestos they should at least ensure us that whoever has or whoever is taking over is going to continue from wherever the previous government stopped. And if they are able to do that, would make headway.
We will, indeed, we will. Yes. We will. I will leave it here, but let's move to the Foreign Affairs Minister, Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. Now, he was very emphatic about the changes that are going to occur when it comes to the role or the mandate of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It has been my focus for some time now. I've been waiting impatiently just to see what he brings, the new direction that he will be introducing as soon as he is in the office. And he mentioned quite some very interesting areas. I want to share some of them with you. He talked about Ghana working with all countries, the whole world. So for us, it's just about what is in our interest. We will work with anybody. We don't have friends. We are friends with all of you and enemies to none. So that is actually one of the principles when it comes to Ghana's foreign policy. And that is key. And then he also talked about economic diplomacy. Economic diplomacy is central to the growth of every country. Right now, especially when it comes to developing countries, economic diplomacy is largely in the conversation. So I think that's also a good one. Identifying the key areas that would serve as a guide to us so that we can move in the right direction. I think that is very good on paper. We are yet to see how that translates on the ground. Well, what do you make of it? I will start with Samuel again. What do you make of it? Very interesting areas and measures that are going to be introduced. We will also look at the delivery units to spearhead institutional reforms. That's like a desk or something, a new one that is, being introduced at the Foreign Affairs Ministry.
Yes.
When you listened to him, what was happening in your head when you were listening to him?
I think tackling economic diplomacy is very important. The president has mentioned 24-hour economy, and if that can be pushed to the international community and the world, then it is important for us to reach out to all countries. The truth of the matter is, it is not like a Western bloc and Eastern bloc anymore, because the Eastern bloc is also developing. Now we even have what we call the BRICS, and it is one of the areas that are actually growing. And if you look at their contribution to the world economies, is so great. So we can't actually lose sight of some of these blocks, or let me say associations that are coming up. So it is important that the president has taken that entrenched position. I think it's very important because you can't cut anyone out. This is the case that, yes, look at some of the executive orders signed by US. It tells you that if you are not very careful and you are not also placed in a very strategic position, you will find yourself wanting. And I think that it is important that the president reiterates that indeed he's working with everybody. With the economic diplomacy, I think that it is important for us to reach out to countries in a way and manner that will be strategic in the way we do our things. First of all, we should look at the things that we have and the things that we don't have as a country. Our raw materials, how are we going to develop them? If it's just about importing
value addition.
Exactly. If it's just about importing our raw materials, I don't think we are going to develop the country, because we are still going to be a primary producer of raw materials, and at the end of the day, we will not be able to develop our economy. If you look at how we'll be able to build us, globalization is very important. And Okujeto talked about digital diplomacy, and all these things are very important. And I think that it is time we sign up to certain treaties and bilateral agreements with countries that will focus on the interest of Ghana, because there are a lot of things we can do as a country. We shouldn't wait for them to bring their protocols and their bilateral agreement, and we just look at all the clauses and just accept them like that. We should be able to go to the negotiating table and make sure that we negotiate to actually benefit the country, because Ghana have enormous resources that we can benefit of. Recently, we were able to discover platinum in Ghana, and if you look at the contribution to the production of battery to the world, we can do that. And here we are talking about sustainable development and economic climate change. What is Ghana doing towards that? This is where we can sign to certain treaties ensuring that about 70 or 80% of batteries that are produced on the international markets, we will get our quota. And for that matter, this is where we are moving to a green world now. So if we are moving to a green world, then we can sign to agreements that some of these cars that use batteries will be produced in Ghana here, and we can reach an agreement in the form of barter. You produce the batteries at this percentage, and you also produce car for us, and we exchange in that manner.
Solar.
Yes, of which we can develop.
We are wasting the sun.
I think we should look at some of these policies. Some of our policies are outmoded, especially in the energy sector, and also how we can also push for economic and sustainable development, and also ensuring climate change. So I think that some of these things, we may say them nicely, but implementation.
And I was happy to also hear let me take you back one more time. Okay. The president mentioned, no, that will be the minister, still on the minister. So the minister mentioned that the president is bent on formulating a new comprehensive foreign policy that reflects the current dynamics, for a more transformational future. And I think that captures it all. Are we able, when you were listening to the minister was very frank, very emphatic about how things are going to be done differently from the past administration, what the gaps are regarding Ghana's foreign affairs, and how they can be able to close, the gap. Not just closing the gap, but the ministry should work for results for the people. What do you think? Are we good to go, or these are just as usual, beautifully written on the paper?
Exactly.
Do you have any hope?
I have hope for Ghana and for Africa.
For this administration?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Briefly, what I want to add to what my brother just said is that we have all the human resources, we have all the material resources. Governments have come, they have gone. We keep saying the same thing. Are we willing to do what we said we will do? So it is a willingness and to be accountable to the people, because everything we need to make a country work, we have it. So are we willing to do? Yeah.
That's a very good question. I'm also asking myself the same question. I guess that is we have to wait to see how things unfold in the coming days, because it's still early days yet. But we are happy that the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, together with his foreign minister, are very bent on getting things done. So we hope and we wish them well. Let's see how this one goes. I think there was one more issue that I wanted us to touch on. That will be the transactional diplomacy bit. I was like, where is he going with this? Transactional diplomacy already? Where did your mind go when he mentioned transactional diplomacy? I see the way you are nodding. I want to start with you. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
So, transactional diplomacy, it is very important, because most of the times, you see, I've always been saying that we've been exploited for a very long time.
Very.
So it is important.
Now you sound like Trump now. America has been exploited for a very long time,
Yes.
and therefore it's about time,
Yes.
you know, they don't anymore allow themselves to be exploited.
We sit as a country. Sometimes if I look at countries that have developed past us, before our independence or post-independence, we were far developed than countries like Malaysia and others. Where are they today? So sometimes it is premised on some of these diplomacy or diplomatic ties we have with countries, and at the end of the day they exploit us. So it is important for us to also put it at the back of our mind that diplomacy is not just about diplomacy, it's about interest.
It's about interest.
And it is about also focusing on how you can develop your country, because I don't think US, UK or any part of the Western countries, they are Father Christmas and they will come and share goodies to us as a country. They have their interest. So if Ghana is going to negotiate with some of these countries, what interest do we have at heart? What things can we do to radically transform the country? Because we've gotten to a point that we need a transformation, and it all starts with our leaders and how they are able to go out there and negotiate. It is very important, and I think Samuel Kujetua Ablakwa has a daunting task.
He indeed does.
Yes.
He does. But yes, transactional diplomacy. I think the first time I heard of transactional diplomacy was the minute Mr. Trump, you know, assumed office.
Yes,
and he is all about that's what the narrative is out there, that he's all about transactional diplomacy. I think cooperation is very important as well, since no country is an island. And I think, yes, it is important that you look out for yourself, but then I think it shouldn't be isolationism. It should be partnership, collaboration, and working in hand to solve some of these global challenges that we are faced with.